War. To mortals, it's chaos, an agony of steel, screams, and smoke. But to the gods, it's theater, and no one took the stage quite like Ares. When the world was young, and kings still fought hand-to-hand on fields of dust, there was one name whispered in fear before every battle. Not Zeus, not Hades, not Athena, but Ares, the god who didn't just oversee war, he embodied it. He wasn't the one who planned sieges or inspired clever strategies. Ares was the blood in the soil, the clash of bronze against bone, the unstoppable rage that overtakes reason. When the soldier forgets why he's fighting and only knows that he must kill or be killed. To the Greeks, he was both a god and a curse, feared by cities, loved by warriors, despised even by his own father, Zeus. He fought recklessly, felt deeply, and bled like any man. And that's what made him terrifying. Because Ares wasn't the distant kind of god who watched from Olympus. He joined the fight. When the war drums sounded, he rode in with a roar that split the sky, his chariot pulled by 4 fire-breathing horses. He could topple empires but lose to mortals. Love the goddess of beauty, yet end up humiliated before all of Olympus. He could fight for justice one day and slaughter without cause the next. He was the rawest face of divinity, the part of creation that bleeds, rages, and craves conflict. Where Athena saw victory, Ares saw only the pleasure of the fight. And yet, behind his bloodlust, there was something else, something buried. The story of a god who was never meant to be loved, only feared. A god born not from harmony, but from hatred. This is the story of Ares, the god of war, from Greek mythology. Long before the first mortal picked up a spear, Olympus itself was at war. The gods might have ruled from the clouds, but peace was not in their nature, and no divine marriage proved that better than Zeus and Hera. They were the king and queen of Olympus, powerful, commanding, but always at odds. Zeus strayed often, and Hera's fury was legend. So when Zeus birthed Athena alone, from his own mind, Hera's pride shattered. She had no part in that creation, no motherly claim to a goddess of wisdom and war. And so, in her rage, Hera sought to match him. Some say she touched the earth, others that she drank a potion from the heavens, but without Zeus she conceived a child. That child was Ares. He was born not from love, but resentment, a living symbol of divine spite, Hera's answer to Zeus's brilliance. While Athena embodied intellect and reason, Ares was passion and fury, the untamed heartbeat of battle. He was everything Athena wasn't. And from the moment he drew his first breath, the two would stand as opposites, two faces of war itself. Where Athena stood for strategy, Ares stood for chaos. Where she inspired unity, he thrived in division. And though both were children of Olympus, only one was admired. Zeus loved Athena for her wisdom, but he loathed Ares for his violence. He once called his son the most hateful of all gods, and the words cut deeper than any blade. But Ares did not change. He couldn't. He was born from conflict, and to conflict he would always return. Yet not all mortals saw him as a monster. In Thrace, the northern land of warriors and storms, Ares was sacred. The Thracians prayed to him before every raid, painting their shields with blood to honor his name. And in Sparta, the greatest soldiers of Greece built temples to him, believing his spirit lived within every warrior who faced death without fear. But in the rest of Greece, in Athens, in Corinth, in Thebes, Ares was a warning, not a guide. A reminder that war, when left unchecked, consumes everything, cities, kings, and even gods. He was a god without peace, loved by few, hated by many, and destined to live in the shadow of the sister who represented everything he lacked. But even as Olympus scorned him, Ares's power grew. Because the truth was simple. As long as there was blood to spill, there would always be a place for him. And soon, the god born of vengeance would become the heartbeat of every battlefield. When mortals imagined Ares, they did not see light or wisdom or calm. They saw terror made flesh. He towered above men, broad-shouldered, armored from head to toe, his eyes burning with a fury that could silence entire armies. Every movement carried the weight of thunder. Bronze plates clashed against one another as he walked, the sound echoing like the heartbeat of war itself. His breath was said to smell of iron and smoke, the scent of freshly spilled blood. Ares rode into battle in a golden chariot drawn by 4 stallions that breathed fire: Aethon, Phlogios, Conobos, and Phobos. Their hooves scorched the ground wherever they touched, leaving blackened trails that no rain could wash away. Ares' presence alone could shift the tide of war. Where he walked, peace faltered. Where he glared, courage turned to madness. He was often depicted in crimson armor, wielding a spear that gleamed red under the sun, not from decoration, but from the blood it had drawn. At his side hung a round shield engraved with images of slaughter and conquest, a grim reminder of his purpose. His sacred animals reflected his nature: the vulture, who feasts on the aftermath of war; the dog, loyal yet vicious, who follows his master into every fight; and in later tales, even the boar, fierce, untamable, and unstoppable once provoked. Temples built to Ares often featured these creatures carved into stone, watching from the shadows like silent guardians of violence. But not all his symbols were grim. Some ancient poets wrote of the torch as his sign, the fire that ignites both courage and destruction. It represented how easily passion can turn to violence and how quickly order can become chaos. In art, Ares was everything a warrior aspired to be and feared to become: young, strong, perfect in form, yet marked by endless rage. He was beauty and brutality combined, the divine mirror of mankind's most primal instinct. Even among the gods, his image commanded respect, not because they admired him, but because they understood what he represented. For every temple of Athena that celebrated wisdom and justice, there was a shrine to Ares that whispered the truth. Without him, peace meant nothing. And so his likeness endured, not as a symbol of glory, but as a reminder that beneath every civilization, no matter how noble, there lies the same ancient hunger to fight. Ares was not like the other Olympians. He didn't care for politics or pride or the intricate games of Olympus. He was simple, dangerously simple. He fought, he loved, he bled. And when he was wounded, he roared loud enough to shake the heavens. Where Athena calculated, Ares reacted. His decisions came from the gut, not the mind. To the Greeks, that made him reckless, but to warriors who lived and died by instinct, it made him real. He was a god of passion, not precision. Quick to anger, but also quick to forgive. Fierce, yet strangely emotional, capable of love as violent as his fury. He laughed in battle, mourned his fallen lovers, and cursed his defeats. No other god embodied such raw human energy. That was his strength and his weakness. In battle, Ares was unstoppable. His power grew with every scream, every clash of steel. Wherever conflict erupted, he appeared. Not always seen, but felt. A surge of adrenaline, a tremor in the air, the scent of blood that made men fight beyond exhaustion. It was said that when Ares entered a battlefield, even the earth itself quaked under his fury. He commanded not only soldiers, but emotions: fear, rage, courage, despair. He could twist the hearts of men, driving them to fight long after hope was lost. To those who worshipped him, he was not just the god of war, but the god of survival. The raw instinct to live when all reason said to surrender. And yet, his power came at a price. Ares could not control the chaos he unleashed. His influence was unpredictable, sometimes a blessing, sometimes a curse. A soldier might call on him for strength and instead find himself lost to bloodlust, unable to distinguish friend from foe. Even among the gods, Ares was controversial. Zeus despised his temper. Apollo mocked his mindlessness. Athena pitied him, not because he was weak, but because he never learned restraint. But despite their scorn, none could match his raw ferocity. When Ares entered the fray, even gods thought twice before standing in his path. His roles stretched beyond the battlefield. He was protector of soldiers, punisher of cowards, and avenger of dishonor. He represented every emotion that reason tried to bury: jealousy, anger, pride, and the hunger for victory. He was the divine embodiment of mankind's oldest truth, that peace is fragile and war is always waiting. And though mortals cursed his name, they never stopped calling for him when the fighting began, because in their hearts they knew Ares was not evil. He was honest. He did not pretend that war was noble or righteous or just. To him, it was simply nature. And nature never apologizes. For a god forged from violence, Ares had a surprising weakness: love. And not just any love, but a dangerous one. Her name was Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and desire. To mortals, they were opposites: love and war. But in truth, they were twins in spirit. Both were born from passion, both consumed by emotion, and both had a way of destroying everything they touched. Their affair began in secret. Aphrodite was bound to Hephaestus, the god of fire and the forge, brilliant but disfigured, slow and patient, where Ares was wild and impulsive. Perhaps that's what drew her in. Ares was everything Hephaestus wasn't: bold, fierce, untamed. And Aphrodite was everything Ares lacked: grace, softness, and allure. Together, they burned brighter than any flame on Olympus. They would meet in hidden chambers, in quiet fields after battles, or among the stars themselves. Their love was intoxicating but reckless, and it didn't stay hidden for long. Helios, the sun god, saw everything. And one morning, as his chariot crossed the sky, he caught sight of the two gods tangled together in their embrace. Disgusted, or perhaps amused, he went straight to Hephaestus and told him the truth. Hephaestus said nothing at first, but he began to work. In his forge, deep beneath Olympus, he crafted an invisible net of unbreakable bronze, thinner than silk, yet stronger than iron. And one night, when Ares and Aphrodite were together, Hephaestus cast his trap and bound them where they lay. The next morning, he summoned the entire pantheon to witness their humiliation. The gods gathered, laughing and whispering as Ares and Aphrodite struggled, caught in each other's arms, unable to move. Poseidon tried to suppress a grin. Apollo made crude jokes. Hermes smirked. Even Zeus could barely hide his amusement. But beneath the laughter, there was a kind of jealousy too. Because love, that intense, that raw, was rare even among gods. When Hephaestus finally released them, Ares fled in shame to Thrace, his homeland, and Aphrodite to Cyprus, her sanctuary of beauty. Yet even humiliation couldn't extinguish what burned between them. They found each other again, and again. Their love story was a paradox: violent, passionate, tragic. And though Olympus mocked them, mortals saw something divine in their union. Because in the end, love and war are not opposites. They're the same fire. One burns the heart, the other burns the world. And no matter how much shame he endured, Ares would rather face the laughter of gods than live without her. For a god of war, surrendering to love was the only battle he ever lost willingly. For all his might, even Ares had known defeat, not by gods, not by kings, but by two brothers who thought themselves greater than Olympus itself. They were the Aloadae, Otis and Ephialtes, giant sons of Poseidon, massive, arrogant, and ambitious beyond measure. They were not content to rule among mortals. They wanted to replace the gods. Their plan was bold: to storm the heavens and overthrow Zeus. They piled mountains atop one another, Ossa upon Olympus, Pelion upon Ossa, forming a ladder of stone that reached the very clouds. The sky thundered with Zeus's fury, and the gods prepared for war. But before the battle could begin, the twins turned their attention to Ares. He was the god of war, the one who would surely stand in their way. So they decided to strike first. In a moment of arrogance, or perhaps overconfidence, Ares confronted them alone. The god of battle met the sons of the sea and lost. They captured him, bound him in chains, and sealed him inside a bronze jar deep beneath the earth. There, in total darkness, Ares remained for 13 months. 13 endless months. No sunlight, no sound, only the echo of his own rage. The god of war, silenced. The world above began to change. Battles slowed, warriors hesitated, armies lost their will to fight. Even mortals could feel it. Something in the air had gone still. Without Ares, war itself began to fade. It was Hermes who finally found him. Hearing faint cries from beneath the mountains, he descended, broke the jar, and freed the imprisoned god. When Ares emerged, his fury was unmatched. He roared so loud that the sky trembled and the mountains cracked. The Aloadae never had the chance to enjoy their victory. They soon turned on each other, tricked by Apollo, who made them believe the other was their enemy. Their own arrogance destroyed them. But Ares remembered. The humiliation burned in him more deeply than any wound. For the rest of time, he despised the giants, and his rage against them would one day fuel the greatest divine battle of all, the Gigantomachy. The tale of the bronze jar was more than a story of defeat. It was a warning that even war can be bound. But when released, its vengeance will shake the world. Hey everyone, before we continue, I've got some exciting news. My weekly video is now live on my new channel, Index Unknown. That's where I dive into the hidden side of history, the secrets, the theories, the conspiracies, the things they don't want you to know. The latest upload tells the strange story of the children of Woolpit, two mysterious kids who appeared in a medieval English village with green skin and no knowledge of our world. Were they lost travelers, victims of folklore, or visitors from somewhere beneath our world? The link's below if you're interested. Check it out after this video. There are few things more dangerous than a god in love, but a god enraged. That's something else entirely. Among the many tales of Ares' wrath, one stands apart, not for its bloodshed, but for its justice. It began with his daughter, Alcippe. Ares loved her fiercely, perhaps because she was one of the few who saw beyond the rage, who saw her father's heart beneath the armor. One day, as Alcippe walked near the banks of a stream outside Athens, she was attacked by Aloadae, the son of Poseidon. He tried to take her by force, but before he could finish the deed, Ares appeared, not as a god descending from Olympus, but as a father. He struck Aloadae down where he stood, the earth drinking his blood. To Ares, it was justice. To the other gods, it was murder. And so, for the first time in divine history, a god was put on trial. Zeus himself summoned the court, calling all the Olympians to gather on a rocky hill overlooking Athens. The place would later be known as the Areopagus, the Hill of Ares. There, beneath the open sky, Ares stood before the gods to face judgment. Poseidon demanded retribution for his son's death, but Ares did not kneel. He did not beg. He told them the truth, that his act was not born of malice, but of protection. That Aloadae had defiled sacred law, and that vengeance was not cruelty, it was duty. The gods argued for days. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, presided over the trial, a poetic irony given their eternal rivalry. In the end, she sided with him. The gods declared Ares innocent, and his daughter was spared from shame. From that moment onward, the hill became sacred, a place where even mortals could stand trial for their crimes, echoing the judgment of the gods themselves. The Athenians would later build their court there, believing justice had first been spoken on that very rock. And though Ares was cleared of guilt, the memory stayed with him. He had killed for love, not conquest. And perhaps, for the first time, the god of war had acted not as chaos, but as a father protecting what was his. That day, Ares proved that beneath the armor and bloodlust, there was something few ever saw: a heart that understood pain, loyalty, and justice. He would return to war soon after, but that brief glimpse of humanity made him more than a destroyer. It made him real. When the fires of Troy burned, even the gods chose sides, and among them, none burned hotter than Ares. He stood with the Trojans, not because of loyalty or justice, but because of Aphrodite. His lover's heart was tied to Troy, and where she went, he followed. For Ares, love and war had always been the same thing. Both demanded passion, both left ruin in their wake. From the moment he entered the field, the air grew heavier. The screams of men seemed to echo longer, their courage twisting into desperation. They said that when Ares walked among them, blood itself shimmered like fire. He did not command armies. He was the army. But his rage blinded him, and Athena, as always, was watching. She stood with the Greeks, calm, deliberate, precise, the opposite of everything Ares was. To her, war was a tool. To him, it was a storm. When Diomedes, a mortal warrior favored by Athena, met Ares in battle, the impossible happened. The god of war clashed with a man and lost. Guided by Athena's hand, Diomedes hurled his spear, and the weapon pierced Ares' flesh. The god screamed, a sound so loud it was said to echo across the heavens, shaking the very stones of Troy. He fled the battlefield, blood spilling from his wound, staining the clouds as he rose to Olympus. There he confronted Zeus, demanding justice for his pain, but the king of the gods only looked at him with disdain. "You are the most hateful of all gods," Zeus said. "Forever strife is dear to you. War and battle are all you love." Even on Olympus, Ares found no sympathy. His wounds were tended by Paeon, the divine healer, but his pride never recovered. For the first time, mortals had seen a god bleed, and worse, they had seen him retreat. Still, Ares returned to the battlefield. He always did. Each time he swore he would fight with honor, to bring balance and justice, and each time he was consumed by the same fury that defined him. He fought beside the Trojans until the city's final fall, his rage as endless as the war itself. The story of Ares at Troy wasn't just one of defeat. It was a lesson that even a god can be undone by his own nature. No armor, no weapon, not even divine blood can protect the heart from what it craves. And Ares craved war. Not for victory, but for the feeling of being alive in the chaos. He would heal, he would rise, and he would fight again. Because Ares was not made to win or lose. He was made to fight. For all his fury, Ares was not alone in his chaos. His bloodline stretched across the world, a legacy carved in fear, fury, and tragedy. Each of his children was a reflection of him, a fragment of the god of war's soul. First came Phobos and Deimos, fear and terror, twin sons born from his union with Aphrodite. They rode beside their father into every battle, their cries echoing over armies like the shrieks of vultures. When men felt their hearts seize before a fight, when courage drained from their limbs and the air turned cold, that was Phobos and Deimos, the sons of Ares, whispering their names into mortal ears. Together the three were unstoppable. Fury, fear, and terror. They didn't just command war, they were its rhythm. Where they marched, courage shattered. Even the strongest soldiers could feel their resolve crumble beneath the weight of their presence. Then came Enyo, the goddess of destruction. She walked beside Ares during his bloodiest campaigns, her laughter rising above the sound of steel. Where Ares was fury, Enyo was slaughter, the divine madness that made men kill without reason. The two were inseparable, twin forces of unrelenting carnage. And then there was Harmonia, perhaps the strangest of his children. Born from Ares and Aphrodite, she represented peace after conflict, the fragile calm that follows devastation. Her very existence was a contradiction, the perfect balance between love and war. She would go on to marry Cadmus, the founder of Thebes, but Ares' bloodline carried its curse with her. When Cadmus and Harmonia received a necklace forged by Hephaestus, it brought ruin to every descendant who touched it, a reminder that even harmony born of war cannot escape its shadow. Among his mortal offspring were the Amazons, the fierce warrior women of legend. They claimed descent from Ares himself, and it showed, fearless, relentless, and bound by battle. To them, war was sacred. Every victory was a prayer. Every wound, an offering. They lived and died as Ares did, with pride, strength, and fire in their hearts. But not all his children honored him with glory. His son Cycnus, a brutal killer, built a temple to Ares made of human bones. He would ambush travelers, slay them, and use their skulls as offerings. Until one day, he met Heracles, who struck him down in single combat. When Ares came to avenge his son, Heracles wounded even him, another scar to add to the god's endless collection. Ares' children were not united by loyalty or love, but by nature. They were his emotions given form: fear, madness, peace, vengeance, and pride. Together they painted the truth of his divinity, that war is not one thing. It is terror and courage, ruin and rebirth, cruelty and honor. Through them, Ares lived on, not as a single god, but as an inheritance. A reminder that his influence could not be slain because it was not a person. It was a force. And that force flowed through blood, through generations, through every beating heart that dared to fight. The chains of the bronze jar had long since been broken, but Ares never forgot the humiliation. And when the time came for vengeance, it arrived with thunder. The world shook with the Gigantomachy, the great war between the giants and the Olympians. Born of the earth, the giants rose against the heavens, monstrous and relentless, seeking to overthrow the gods themselves. They came from the blood of Uranus, spilled upon Gaia, and in their rage, they sought to avenge the titans who had fallen before them. The skies turned black with smoke as Olympus trembled. Zeus hurled lightning, Poseidon split mountains, Athena struck down her foes with precision. But amid the chaos, it was Ares who roared the loudest. He had been waiting for this war. The giants who once mocked him, who once dared to bind him, would now face the god of battle at his full, unleashed fury. His chariot thundered across the battlefield, pulled by his fire-breathing horses. Phobos and Deimos rode beside him, their shrieks drowning out the thunder. Every swing of his spear sent tremors through the land. Every strike shattered stone, bone, and mountain alike. Ares faced the giant Eurytus, a beast of towering size whose laughter echoed like an earthquake. The two clashed with such force that even Zeus paused to watch. Ares drove his spear through the giant's chest, and when the creature fell, the impact shook the foundations of the world. The earth screamed, the sky cracked, and Ares stood victorious, drenched in divine and monstrous blood alike. For once, his fury served not chaos, but purpose. For once, his violence defended the order of Olympus rather than threatening it. Even Athena, watching from afar, could not deny his strength. But when the last giant fell, and the world grew silent again, Ares did not celebrate. There were no songs, no cheers, no triumphs. He looked down upon the devastation, the corpses of gods and monsters alike, and for the briefest moment, even the god of war understood the price of victory. Because to Ares, there was no difference between war waged for justice and war waged for pride. The blood still spilled the same, and though he had finally avenged his shame, the victory left him hollow. Another battlefield, another silence. The Gigantomachy ended, Olympus stood unchallenged, and the gods returned to their thrones. But Ares remained restless, because for him, peace was not a reward. It was a prison, the same kind that had once held him in bronze. And so, he waited, for the next spark, the next insult, the next reason to fight. Because if the other gods were made to rule the world, Ares was made to burn it. No other god divided the ancient world quite like Ares. To some, he was a curse, the embodiment of chaos and bloodlust. To others, he was a guardian, the divine strength that allowed men to stand their ground. It all depended on who you asked and how close they lived to war. In Athens, Ares was tolerated, not loved. He had his shrine on the hill that bore his name, the Areopagus, where men were tried for murder. But even there, his worship was cold, restrained. Athenians honored Athena, wisdom, strategy, reason. They feared Ares, fury, passion, destruction. To them, he was a reminder of what happens when war loses its purpose, when glory becomes slaughter. But in Thrace, the wild northern land of warriors and storms, it was different. The Thracians prayed to him before every raid, painting their shields with blood to call his favor. They built altars under open skies, believing the thunder was Ares roaring across the heavens. Here, war wasn't shameful. It was sacred. They saw in him not a monster, but a god who understood their world. And in Sparta, Ares was revered above almost all others. The Spartans didn't pray for peace, they prayed for victory. Before battle, they offered dogs, his sacred animal, their blood spilled into the dirt as a symbol of loyalty and courage. They said Ares lived inside every Spartan's heart, awakening in the instant before battle, when fear became fury and hesitation turned to resolve. For them, Ares wasn't destruction, he was survival. But it was in Rome that his image transformed completely. There, Ares became Mars, no longer a reckless bringer of chaos, but the god of discipline, order, and empire. Mars was the protector of Rome, the father of its founders, Romulus and Remus. Through Mars, Ares was reborn as a symbol of strength, civic duty, and honor, proof that even the spirit of war could evolve into something greater. Temples rose in his name. March, the month of Mars, began the Roman year, marking the season of military campaigns. His festivals were celebrations of unity and courage, not bloodlust. And for the first time, Ares's fury found purpose. What the Greeks called barbaric, the Romans called civilization's backbone. But over time, stories twisted. Poets, philosophers, and playwrights turned him into a caricature, a one-note god of blind violence. They called him cowardly, impulsive, even foolish. Because he didn't fit their ideals, he was too raw, too honest. They needed their gods to be noble, wise, and composed, and Ares was none of those things. Modern retellings only deepened the misunderstanding. He became a villain, the god of bloodlust, chaos, and destruction for its own sake, a symbol of rage without reason. But that's not the Ares the ancients truly feared. He wasn't evil, he was necessary. Ares never lied about what he represented. He didn't hide behind speeches or ideals. He was the truth of war, stripped of heroism, stripped of honor, the fear, the frenzy, the part of the human heart that craves conflict no matter how much it pretends to despise it. That's why the Greeks distrusted him, because Ares held up a mirror they didn't want to look into. He showed them that war wasn't just fought on fields, but within the soul, a struggle between control and chaos, courage and rage. And that truth made them uncomfortable. In the end, the greatest misconception about Ares wasn't that he loved violence, it's that he stood for only that. Because beneath the blood and thunder, he was also the god of endurance, of loyalty, of the will to fight when everything else has fallen. He was war in all its forms, not just the madness that destroys, but the fire that makes survival possible. And though civilizations rose and fell, though his name was rewritten and reimagined, one truth never changed. As long as humanity remembers conflict, the god of war will never be forgotten.